When the galaxy first discovered Earth, it did not react with excitement or friendship. Instead, there was fear. The other alien civilizations had never seen a planet like this one. Earth was wild, dangerous, and unpredictable. Its storms could destroy cities, its oceans hid monsters, and its land burned, froze, or shook without warning. Every form of life on Earth had to struggle to survive. Out of this chaos came humanity, a species that learned to live through pain, adapt to disaster, and never give up. To the Galactic Union, which was made up of hundreds of peaceful and advanced alien species, humans looked more like a threat than potential friends. They called Earth a death world, a place where even the air and water could kill. The creatures that came from such a world, they believed, must be ruthless and violent. The Union decided to watch from a distance. They studied humans secretly, scanning their broadcasts, watching their wars, and whispering warnings to one another. They fight even among themselves, one alien leader said. If they ever reach the stars, none of us will be safe. But humanity didn't know they were being watched. They were too busy surviving, exploring, and dreaming of the stars. They fought wars, made peace, and built machines that reached into the void. Slowly, their technology grew. They learned how to travel faster, live longer, and build stronger. One by one, their rockets turned into ships, and their telescopes became gateways to other worlds. When their first colony ship broke through into interstellar space, the Galactic Union finally faced the truth. The Deathworlders had arrived. At first, there was panic. Some species demanded that Earth be quarantined. "We cannot let them spread," said the chancellor of the serene aquatic race known as the Velthari. "They bring destruction wherever they go." Others wanted to study humans more closely. "If they have survived such a world," argued the insectoid scholar Zathkal, "then perhaps we can learn from them." But most agreed on one thing: no one wanted direct contact. Humanity was placed on a watch list, and their name became a whispered warning across the stars. Years passed. Humanity continued to grow, still unaware of how the galaxy feared them. They colonized the moons of Jupiter, the deserts of Mars, and the icy edges of their solar system. Their technology advanced faster than the Union expected. What shocked the alien observers most wasn't humanity's weapons or ships. It was their ability to rebuild. Every time disaster struck, war, famine, or plague, humans didn't disappear. They rose again, stronger and smarter than before. It was as if they were made to survive anything. Some alien scientists began to feel a strange curiosity, even admiration. They saw in humans something the galaxy had forgotten: determination. Most of the Union species had evolved on gentle worlds. They had lived in peace for so long that they had forgotten how to struggle. Their societies were stable but slow. Their people were intelligent but cautious. The Deathworlders, on the other hand, moved fast, thought creatively, and never gave up. "Perhaps they are not monsters," said Zathkal. "Perhaps they are fire. Dangerous, yes, but also the spark that lights the dark." Still, the Union did not reach out. It preferred distance. And then, everything changed. At the far edge of the galaxy, something terrible appeared. No one knew where it came from. It wasn't a fleet, nor a living species as they understood life. It was a swarm. Machines and organisms fused together in a horrifying way, spreading like a plague from star to star. Entire colonies went silent. Planets were stripped bare. Ships vanished into the dark, leaving behind only fragments of data and faint distress signals. The Union called them the Devourers. The Union tried to fight back, but their fleets were built for peacekeeping, not total war. Their weapons were too weak, their tactics too slow. Every system they tried to defend fell sooner or later. The Council grew desperate. They debated endlessly, looking for a way to stop the Devourers. But there was no unity, only fear. And then, in one of the secret meetings of the Council, someone finally spoke the words no one dared to say aloud. "What about the Deathworlders?" Silence filled the chamber. No one liked the idea, but no one could deny the truth either. Humanity had survived everything their own world had thrown at them: disasters, wars, and endless challenges. If any species could face something like the Devourers, it might be them. The Velthari Chancellor objected immediately. "They are unpredictable. They fight without mercy. If they win, what will stop them from turning on us?" But Zathkal replied softly, "If we do not call them, there will be no one left to turn on." The debate raged for weeks. Finally, as the Devourers approached the border worlds, the Council voted. It was not a proud decision, but a desperate one. They would contact Earth, for the first time in galactic history. The message that left the Union's central station was simple: a call for help. It explained the situation, the danger, and the fact that entire civilizations were falling. It also contained a confession: we know what you are, we know where you come from, and we need you. When the message reached Earth, humanity was stunned. They had always wondered if they were alone, but they never expected to be feared by others. The leaders of Earth gathered, reading every line carefully. Some wanted to ignore the plea. They were afraid of us, one general said. Why should we help them now? Others argued that this was humanity's chance to prove itself. If we are as strong as they think, said Admiral Elias Ward, then strength should mean protection, not conquest. After long debate, humanity decided to answer. They sent a single message back: we will come. The Galactic Union watched in disbelief as the Deathworlder fleet began to move. The humans were not like any other species they had seen. Their ships were built from dense metals and armor that could withstand incredible damage. Their engines burned hotter, faster, and louder. Their soldiers wore suits that could survive toxic air, freezing cold or burning heat. They were, in every way, the children of their brutal planet, hard, stubborn, and unbreakable. For many aliens, seeing the human fleet for the first time was like watching a storm approach. The ships were black and gray, covered in scars, with names like Endurance, Resolute, and Vigilant. They didn't glide gracefully like the sleek Union vessels. They thundered through space, leaving trails of fire behind them. Even before the battle began, the aliens whispered in awe and fear, and yet deep inside their hearts, a spark of hope was lit, because as terrifying as humanity appeared, there was something comforting about their arrival. For the first time in months, the Union's leaders felt that maybe, just maybe, the Devourers could be stopped. The Deathworlders had come not to conquer, but to fight for survival, just as they always had. Admiral Ward stood before his crew aboard the flagship Titan's Reach, looking out at the endless stars. They call us Deathworlders, he said, his voice calm but firm. Maybe they're right. We come from a world that kills the weak. But we learned something there, that life fights hardest when it has something worth protecting. So that's what we'll do. The fleet launched toward alien space, their engines blazing. Behind them, Earth watched in silence. Ahead of them lay the unknown, the Devourers, the Union, and the test of everything humanity had ever learned about survival. The galaxy had once feared the Deathworlders. Now, for the first time, it would learn what it truly meant to have them on its side. And so began a story that no one in the galaxy would ever forget. The story of how the most feared species in the universe became its only hope. When the humans answered the Galactic Union's call for help, the news spread like a shockwave through every corner of the galaxy. Many aliens could not believe it. They had grown up hearing stories about the Deathworlders, the dangerous creatures from the violent planet called Earth. For generations, humans had been seen as unpredictable, aggressive, and terrifying. And now those same creatures were coming, not as enemies, but as allies. The galaxy didn't know whether to celebrate or to run. When the first human fleet entered Union space, it did not come quietly. Thousands of ships appeared at once, breaking through the jump gates like a thunderstorm. Alien ships were sleek and graceful, built for smooth travel. Human ships were massive, rough, and scarred, covered with thick armor plates and heavy weapons. They looked more like floating fortresses than spacecraft. Many alien commanders whispered to each other, "Are these the ones who will save us or destroy us?" Admiral Elias Ward led the fleet from the flagship Titan's Reach. He was a tall, calm man with sharp eyes and a voice that carried command without shouting. When the Union's High Council requested a meeting, he went alone, escorted only by 2 officers. The alien council chamber was a great hall filled with beings from hundreds of different worlds, tall, short, scaled, winged, glowing, and shadowed. The sight of a human standing among them was something no one had imagined before. The council leader, a crystalline being named Serath, spoke first. "We welcome the humans of Earth," she said carefully. "We thank you for answering our call. But we must also warn you. The Devourers have taken entire sectors. Our fleets have failed to stop them. If you fight, you will face an enemy unlike any you have known." Admiral Ward simply nodded. "Then it's a good thing we're used to difficult fights," he said with a small smile. Some council members gasped at his boldness. Others whispered nervously, To them, humans were still unpredictable. They fought wars for reasons no one understood. They laughed in danger. They bled and kept going. How could such creatures ever work with peaceful civilizations? Still, the Council had no other choice. They shared everything they knew about the Devourers, their speed, their strange biology, their endless hunger. Human scientists listened closely, asking detailed questions that the aliens had never thought of before. Within days, human engineers began modifying Union ships, adding heavier armor and stronger shields. Alien technicians were shocked to see how quickly humans worked. They don't rest, one said in disbelief. It's as if they're racing against death itself. At first, the alliance was uneasy. Union officers found human soldiers strange and frightening. They trained in high gravity, slept little, and could eat food that would poison most species. The humans, on the other hand, were equally confused by their new allies. Many alien species refused to use weapons, preferring to disable rather than destroy. You can't win a war by being gentle, one human commander muttered during a joint drill. The aliens saw this as barbaric, but they couldn't deny that humans got results. On one of the Union's outer defense stations, an alien officer named Karen was assigned to work with the humans. At first, she avoided them, uncomfortable with their rough behavior. They laughed loudly, told strange jokes, and seemed too relaxed even in dangerous situations. But one night, during a surprise devourer attack, everything changed. Karen's ship was caught in an ambush. The enemy swarm came from nowhere, black spiked shapes tearing through the void. Her crew panicked. The alien ships nearby began retreating, their captains unable to face the terror. Just as Karen was about to order evacuation, a human battleship appeared between her and the swarm. It moved like a shield, taking the full hit of the attack. She watched in shock as the human ship's hull burned, yet it did not fall back. Instead, it fired again and again until the swarm broke apart and fled. When communication was restored, Admiral Ward's voice came through her speakers. "No one gets left behind," he said simply. Karen realized then that humans didn't just fight hard. They fought for something. They protected even those who had doubted them. As days turned into weeks, more battles followed. The Deathworlder fleet began pushing the Devourers back. The aliens couldn't understand how humans kept fighting even when outnumbered or wounded. When a ship was damaged, humans repaired it in hours. When supplies ran low, they shared everything they had. They didn't act like soldiers from a cold, dangerous world. They acted like family. Loud, stubborn, loyal family. Still, not everyone in the Union trusted them. Some political leaders whispered that humans had their own secret plans. "They are learning our technology," one senator warned. "When the war ends, they will rule us." But the soldiers at the front knew better. They saw the truth every day, that humanity fought harder for others than for themselves. In one major battle, the Union command center on the planet Myrath came under attack. The Devourers descended without warning, burning through the atmosphere. The planet's defenses were weak. Panic spread across the surface as the swarm cut through the outer shields. Union generals prepared to abandon the planet, but the humans refused. Admiral Ward sent every available ship to hold the skies. The battle was brutal. Human fighters flew so close to the enemy that some collided and exploded, taking the Devourers with them. Ground troops fought street by street, refusing to retreat even when surrounded. Finally, after 3 days, the Devourers pulled back. Myrath was saved, but at a terrible cost. When the smoke cleared, the aliens walked among the wreckage and found human soldiers still standing guard over alien civilians. One soldier, covered in burns, looked at a Velthari medic and said weakly, "Told you we don't die easy." That simple sentence spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time, the Deathworlders were not seen as monsters, but as protectors. After the battle, Admiral Ward met again with the Council. They thanked him for saving Myrath, but he didn't look proud. He looked tired. "We lost 1,000 ships," he said quietly. "But if it means your people live, it was worth it." The Council members sat in silence. They had never met a species that valued others' lives over their own survival. Something began to change in their hearts. Over time, the alliance grew stronger. The Union learned from humanity's courage, and humanity learned from the Union's wisdom. The aliens taught humans how to improve their energy systems, and humans taught aliens how to fight with passion. Together, they created new weapons, new ships, and new hope. But even as victories came, the war was far from over. The Devourers continued to spread, adapting to every strategy. Each time they were pushed back, they returned in greater numbers. Humanity's fleet was stretched thin. Supplies ran low. Yet not once did Admiral Ward or his people consider giving up. "We've been fighting impossible odds since the day we learned to walk," he told his crew. "This is just another storm." One night in the quiet of the command deck, Karen stood beside him, looking out at the stars. "You humans are strange," she said softly. "You scare us, but you also inspire us." Ward smiled faintly. "That's what life on Earth does. It teaches you to fight even when you're afraid." And in that moment she understood. The reason humanity was so strong wasn't because they came from a deadly planet. It was because they had learned compassion through struggle. They valued life precisely because they had fought so hard to keep it. The alliance that began in fear slowly turned into something greater: respect. The Union fleets began to model themselves after the humans. Alien soldiers started painting their ships with human word, mere courage, hope, endure. The very word Deathworlder began to take on a new meaning. It no longer meant monster. It meant survivor. And so the galaxy watched as the once feared humans, children of a harsh and unforgiving world, stood side by side with the species that had once feared them. Together they formed the largest fighting force the galaxy had ever seen. The Deathworlder fleet, once unwelcome in the stars, had become the shield of the galaxy. And though war still raged and losses mounted, one truth had become clear: humanity, born of chaos and struggle, was no longer the galaxy's nightmare. They were its only hope. The war spread like fire across the stars. Every week new worlds were attacked by the Devourers. They came without warning, swarms of black metal and organic beasts that devoured everything in their path. They didn't talk, didn't negotiate, didn't stop. Planets that had been peaceful for thousands of years were turned into silence and ash. The Galactic Union had never faced an enemy like this before. Their ships were fast but fragile. Their captains were wise but cautious. Against the Devourers, hesitation was death. Then the Deathworlder fleet arrived. The humans entered the battle like a storm, and everything changed. Their ships didn't retreat when outnumbered. Their soldiers didn't panic when surrounded. They fought with a kind of determination that the other species had never seen. To humans, this war was not just about defending planets. It was about survival, something they had practiced for their entire history. The first major victory came at the edge of the Vereen system. The Union had already lost 2 colonies there. When the humans arrived, they found the last planet surrounded by the swarm. The alien commanders believed it was hopeless, but Admiral Elias Ward refused to leave the civilians behind. "We hold the line," he said. "If they want the planet, they'll have to come through us." The battle lasted 3 days and 3 nights. The Devourers outnumbered the humans 10-1. Their ships moved like living creatures, reshaping themselves in the middle of combat. But the Deathworlder fleet didn't fight with fear. They fought with strategy and fury. Human engineers kept damaged ships fighting far beyond what was thought possible. Pilots rammed their own fighters into enemy clusters to protect their allies. When ammunition ran low, crews used debris as weapons, turning broken metal into deadly shrapnel. On the last night, the planet's defenders were close to defeat. The Devourers had broken through the first defense line, and the human flagship Titan's Reach had taken heavy damage. Admiral Ward ordered all remaining ships to form a wall around the planet. Every gun fired until the barrels melted. Every ship became a shield. When the dust cleared, the Devourers had retreated. The price was high, but the humans had done what the galaxy thought impossible. They had stopped the unstoppable. After the battle, alien commanders came aboard human ships for the first time. They were shocked by what they saw. The decks were filled with wounded soldiers helping each other, repairing systems and sharing food with anyone who needed it, even aliens. There was no difference between ranks, no arrogance, just people working together covered in grease, smoke, and blood. To the Union officers, it was chaos. To the humans, it was teamwork. Word spread quickly through the galaxy. The Deathworlders held Vereen. That single sentence changed everything. For the first time, hope began to grow. Other alien fleets started joining the humans in battle. They learned to fight faster, to take risks, and to stand their ground. Humanity's courage was contagious, but the war was far from over. The Devourers were learning. Each time they were defeated, they adapted. They built new forms, stronger and more deadly. Soon, even the combined fleets began to lose ground again. The Devourers attacked in waves, overwhelming defenses and vanishing before counterattacks could land. Whole planets were swallowed in hours. Admiral Ward realized that the enemy was studying them, understanding their tactics. He gathered his top officers and scientists to come up with a new plan. "We have to think like them," he said. "If we wait, we die. We strike first." The humans designed a new kind of warship, built for offense instead of defense. They called it the Inferno class. It was fast, heavily armed, and designed to fight inside enemy formations. When the first Inferno launched, its hull glowed red from its powerful engines, earning it the nickname the Fire from Earth. The humans began using bold, reckless tactics that no alien commander would have dared. They jumped directly into the middle of enemy fleets, using shock and confusion to break their formations. They fought in radiation storms, asteroid fields, and near-collapsing stars, places where no sane species would ever go. But for humanity, danger was just another part of life. Their courage made them unpredictable, and unpredictability was something the Devourers couldn't adapt to easily. Still, the cost was terrible. Every victory came with loss. Entire human crews were wiped out. Ships that had fought side by side for months vanished in flashes of light, yet no one gave up. Every time a ship was lost, another took its place. The aliens who fought alongside humans began painting symbols of Earth on their ships, a blue and green circle, to honor their allies. Among the alien soldiers, one name became legendary: Captain Mara Chen. She was known for leading impossible missions. Once her ship, the Valiant, was surrounded by Devourers near the gas giant Huron. Instead of retreating, she ordered her ship to dive into the planet's atmosphere, hiding in the storm clouds. The Devourers followed and were torn apart by lightning and pressure. When the Valiant rose back out of the storm, scarred but alive, the entire fleet cheered. "Humans don't escape," an alien officer said in awe. "They outlast." But the war began to take a toll on everyone. The Devourers struck deeper into Union territory. Refugee planets overflowed with survivors. Supplies ran low. Tension grew between humans and aliens again. Some alien politicians began whispering that maybe the humans should go back to their own worlds. "They bring war wherever they go," one senator said bitterly. "Perhaps they are not our salvation, but our curse." When Admiral Ward heard about this, he didn't respond with anger. Instead, he broadcast a message across the galaxy. His words were calm but full of strength. "You fear us because we come from a hard world. You think we love war. We don't. We hate it. But we know what happens when you run from it. We've lived it over and over. If we fight, it's not because we want to destroy. It's because we refuse to let darkness win. If you want peace, then fight beside us. Don't hide behind fear." Those words changed minds. Soldiers on hundreds of worlds played that message again and again. It reminded them why they were fighting. It reminded them what humanity truly was. A species that fought not for glory, but for life itself. Soon after, the Devourers launched their biggest attack yet. A fleet larger than any seen before appeared near the twin planets of Thalra and Voss. Millions of lives were at risk. Admiral Ward and the Deathworlder fleet were the first to arrive. They didn't wait for reinforcements. "If we hold here," Ward said to his captains, "the galaxy will have time to breathe. If we fall, everything falls." The battle that followed was chaos. Thousands of ships clashed. The void turned into fire. The Devourers came in endless waves. Human ships exploded one after another, but the line never broke. Aliens and humans fought side by side, shouting across comms, sharing strategies and courage. The humans used everything they had. Nuclear charges, plasma storms, even asteroids turned into weapons. Captain Mara Chen's ship was hit and began to fall toward the surface of Thalra. She stayed at the controls, staring it directly into the heart of the Devourer fleet. Her final words were heard across all channels. "Make it count." When her ship exploded, it took hundreds of enemy vessels with it. The humans mourned, but they kept fighting, using her sacrifice as fuel for their determination. After 3 days, the Devourers retreated again. The humans had held the line once more, but it was clear that the war was far from over. The Devourers were changing, and their next attack would be even worse. The Union began to see that humanity could not fight forever without help. They had given everything, ships, lives, hope, and still stood. For the first time in its long history, the Galactic Union began to change. Its peaceful species started training their own soldiers. Engineers worked alongside humans to create hybrid technology, combining the Union's precision with humanity's toughness. The war was forging a new kind of galaxy, one built on courage instead of fear, and at the center of it all was the Deathworlder fleet. Scarred but unbroken, they had become more than warriors. They were symbols of endurance. When people across the stars spoke of them, it was no longer with fear. It was with pride. The Deathworlders are coming, they would say, and those words meant hope. In the dark corners of the galaxy, where even light seemed afraid to shine, humanity's ships continued to burn like torches in the void. Proof that even in the face of endless destruction, the will to survive could never be extinguished. The war had lasted for years. Entire star systems were gone, reduced to lifeless dust by the Devourers. Even with humanity's help, the Galactic Union was barely holding on. Every victory came with terrible loss. The Deathworlder fleet had become a legend across the stars, admired, respected, and feared. But it was also tired. Ships were damaged beyond repair, soldiers were running out of food and fuel, and the endless battles had left scars on every human heart. Yet despite everything, they refused to stop. For them, stopping meant extinction. Then came the day that changed everything in the battle for Vega Prime. Vega Prime was not just another planet. It was the heart of the Union's refugee network. Billions of survivors from destroyed worlds lived there, protected by massive energy shields and defensive stations. If Vega Prime fell, the galaxy would lose its last safe home. The Devourers knew this, and they were coming for it. The warning came from the outer sensors, a swarm larger than any seen before, stretching across the void like a moving storm. It was so big that even the combined fleets of the Union could not match it. The Council panicked. Some suggested abandoning the planet. Others demanded surrender. But Admiral Elias Ward stood firm. He sent a simple message to the entire Union. We are the wall. Vega Prime will stand. Within hours, what was left of the Deathworlder fleet gathered near Vega Prime. It was a shadow of its former strength. Less than half the ships remained. Some were held together by repairs made from scrap metal. Many had missing turrets, cracked hulls, or failing engines. Still, every single one of them was ready to fight. When the Union civilians saw the humans' fleet arriving, they felt a spark of hope. If the Deathworlders were there, then maybe they still had a chance. Before the battle, Admiral Ward gathered his crew in the main hall of the flagship Titan's Reach. The faces around him were tired, pale, and determined. This is it, he said quietly. We've been called monsters, saviors, and everything in between. None of that matters now. What matters is that behind us are billions of lives who can't fight. We are the shield between them and the end of everything. If we fall knowing we did not run. The crew saluted, and for a moment silence filled the ship. It was the silence before the storm. The Devourers arrived like a dark sea. Thousands upon thousands of enemy ships filled the void, glowing with red and black energy. They moved like a living organism, surrounding Vega Prime from every direction. The human sensors struggled to count them. There were too many. The first wave hit within minutes. The Deathworlder fleet fired every weapon they had. Space turned into fire. At first, the battle seemed even. The humans had powerful cannons, and their tactics confused the Devourers. They used gravity mines, plasma storms, and even crashed damaged ships into enemy clusters. But as the hours passed, the swarm grew thicker. For every Devourer destroyed, 10 more appeared. Human ships were forced to fight until their guns overheated and their shields collapsed. Still, they held the line. Alien fleets joined the humans, inspired by their courage. Ships from a dozen species fought side by side with the Deathworlders. There were no barriers anymore, no fear or suspicion. Every pilot, human or alien, fought for the same goal: to protect Vega Prime. In the command center of the Union, leaders watched in awe. They're still holding, one whispered. By the stars, they're actually holding. As the battle dragged into the second day, the losses became unbearable. Entire human squadrons vanished in explosions. The Titan's Reach took heavy damage, losing half of its engines. Fires burned across its decks, and the crew had to fight while repairing systems at the same time. Still, Admiral Ward refused to retreat. When one of his officers begged him to fall back and regroup, he said, "We don't retreat from the dark. We light the way through it." On the planet below, civilians watched the battle through the sky, seeing bright streaks of fire where ships exploded. Many prayed. Others simply held their loved ones close. They all knew that the humans were fighting for them, strangers from another world who had chosen to die so that others could live. By the third day, the Devourers had broken through the outer line. They were heading straight for Vega Prime's atmosphere. The remaining human ships formed a wall around the planet. The last of the ammunition was running out. The shields were flickering. The Union command sent a desperate message. "You've done enough. Evacuate your ships. We can't lose you all." Admiral Ward listened, then turned off the communication channel. "We didn't come here to survive," he said. "We came to make sure they do." The final hours of the battle were chaos. Human ships collided with enemy vessels deliberately, using their bodies as weapons. Pilots rammed into Devourer carriers to stop them from reaching the surface. Damaged frigates detonated their reactors, creating massive explosions that took hundreds of enemies down at once. Every ship that fell created space for another to fire. Every sacrifice bought a few more minutes for Vega Prime. Onboard Titan's reach, the crew worked without rest. The ship's engines were gone, power was failing, and the enemy was closing in. Admiral Ward stood at the center of the bridge, calm even as alarms screamed around him. His communications officer turned to him, voice shaking. "Sir, the swarm is inside our perimeter. There's no way out." Ward looked out at the stars, now burning with fire and smoke. "Then we hold the line here." The ship's gun decks were nearly destroyed. Crew members fought fires with their bare hands. Engineers used manual controls to keep the main cannon online. When it finally fired, it burned through half the remaining Devourer fleet in a single blast, and tore the ship apart in the process. Admiral Ward's final message was transmitted to all fleets, human and alien alike. His voice was steady, even as the ship fell apart around him. "If we fall," he said, "make it mean something. Protect what we couldn't. Live. Don't waste what we gave you." Those were his last words before the Titan's reach exploded in a blaze of light that lit up the sky of Vega Prime. The explosion shattered the Devourer formation and gave the remaining Union ships enough time to counterattack. The aliens fought harder than ever before. They were no longer just fighting for their own people. They were fighting to honor the Deathworlders who had given everything. The combined fleets pushed the Devourers back. By the time the battle ended, the swarm had retreated into deep space. Vega Prime was safe. When the smoke cleared, the survivors searched for any sign of the human fleet. Only a handful of ships were left, their hulls cracked and burned. The Union sent rescue teams to pick up survivors. Many human soldiers were found floating in escape pods, barely alive. When they were brought aboard alien ships, the crews saluted them as heroes. No one spoke of fear or mistrust anymore. The Deathworlders had erased it with their sacrifice. On Vega Prime, the refugees gathered to watch the sky. The burning debris of the human ships drifted above like falling stars. Some people wept. Others simply stared in silence. Across the galaxy, millions of broadcasts replayed Admiral Ward's final words. His voice became a symbol of courage and unity. Statues were built in his memory, not just on Earth but on alien worlds as well. They showed a human standing tall with his head raised toward the stars, a reminder that sometimes the strongest light comes from the darkest places. The Galactic Union declared the humans of Earth the defenders of life, a title no species had ever earned before. Children of different races learned about the Deathworlders in schools. They learned that these humans, born on a dangerous planet filled with storms and fire, had crossed the stars not to conquer, but to protect. Years later, survivors of the battle still remembered the sight of human ships burning like torches in the void. They remembered the words that carried them through fear and despair. And they remembered the lesson that humanity had taught them, that real strength is not about power or destruction, but about the will to stand when everyone else has fallen. The war was not yet over. The Devourers still existed somewhere in the darkness, waiting for their next move. But the galaxy was no longer afraid. The sacrifice at Vega Prime had proven that unity could win. The Deathworlders were gone, but their spirit lived in every soldier who raised a weapon to protect life. And whenever the stars grew dark and hope began to fade, someone would whisper the same words that had saved Vega Prime. "We hold the line." Years passed after the Battle of Vega Prime, but the memories of that day never faded. The stars still carried the ghosts of human ships, their fragments drifting silently through space like silver dust. Across the galaxy, every world that had once feared humanity now honored them. Monuments stood on alien planets carved from crystal, stone, or metal, all bearing the same words. They held the line. The story of the Deathworlder fleet became more than history. It became legend. But for those who had survived, the legend carried both pride and pain. Captain Mira Hale was one of those survivors. She had been a young officer aboard the destroyer Resolute during the final hours of Vega Prime. Her ship had been torn apart, and she was rescued from a broken escape pod 3 days after the battle. Even years later, she could still see the fire in her dreams. The last flashes of human ships disappearing into the void. Now she served as a liaison between the Galactic Union and the remaining human colonies. But humanity had changed. After Vega Prime, Earth had become a symbol of courage. Yet the planet itself was still fragile, scarred from centuries of wars and climate damage. The survivors of the Deathworlder fleet had returned home as heroes, but many were lost, broken, or haunted. They struggled to rebuild a world that had always felt on the edge of collapse. Still, they worked. They built new ships, trained new soldiers, and promised that the sacrifices at Vega Prime would never be forgotten. Humanity, once feared for its violent nature, was now seen as the galaxy's protector, but even protectors have limits. One cold morning, Captain Hale received a message marked with the highest security level. It was from the Union Council, summoning her to the Central World, Oralis. She arrived to find a gathering of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, alien leaders, scientists, and admirals. Their faces were grim. At the center of the room, a holographic image flickered to life. A vast, dark shape moving through space, devouring everything in its path. It was the Devourers. They had returned. The swarm was smaller than before, but more dangerous. They had evolved, adapted to the weapons used against them. The Union fleets tried to stop them, but failed. Every system they touched turned silent. The same fear that had once haunted the galaxy came rushing back. And this time the humans' fleet was not strong enough to fight another great war. The Council argued for days, some suggesting evacuation, others demanding a new weapon. Captain Hale sat silently until one alien leader asked, "Can humanity save us again?" Her chest tightened. She remembered Admiral Ward's last words, his promise that their sacrifice must mean something. "We can't fight this alone," she said finally, "but maybe together we can finish what he started." That moment sparked a plan, one unlike any before. Instead of fighting the Devourers ship by ship, humanity proposed something greater, the Unity Fleet, a single massive armada made of ships from every species in the Union. Humans would lead it, not as commanders, but as guides. They had learned how to fight the darkness. Now they would teach others. For months, the galaxy's shipyards worked together. Engineers from icy worlds built armor resistant to energy attacks. Scientists from ocean planets created weapons powered by fusion currents. Human designers shared their old Deathworlder blueprints, brutal, rugged, built to survive anything. Slowly, piece by piece, the Unity Fleet was born. When it was complete, it filled the void of space with shining light. It was larger than any fleet ever made, and at its heart was a new flagship, the Dawnfire, commanded by Captain Mira Hale. The first time she stepped onto the bridge, she felt a weight in her chest. The ship's systems glowed with blue light, but her eyes lingered on the symbol painted near the control deck. A silver human hand holding a star, the emblem of the old Deathworlder fleet. "We carry their flame," she whispered. The Unity Fleet began its mission with courage, but fear still lurked in every heart. The Devourers were ancient, nearly unstoppable, and no one knew what they truly were. Some believed they were a natural force, a hunger born from the universe itself. Others thought they were machines gone mad. Whatever they were, they had to be stopped once and for all. The fleet traveled deep into the void, beyond the edge of mapped space. There they found something none expected, a massive black sphere the size of a planet pulsing with strange energy. It was the heart of the Devourer, their origin. Thousands of smaller ships surrounded it like a swarm protecting their queen. "If we destroy that," Captain Hale said, "we end this forever." The battle that followed was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Unity Fleet moved like a living organism, alien and human ships fighting side by side in perfect coordination. The Devourers struck with terrifying speed, tearing through the first lines. But this time the galaxy was ready. Energy nets trapped enemy ships. Quantum mines detonated in patterns that cut the swarm apart. The humans led from the front, taking the heaviest blows. Captain Hale's ship fought in the center of the chaos. Her voice echoed through the comm channels. "Remember Vega Prime. Hold the line!" Those words spread across the fleet like fire. Pilots, gunners, engineers, and every species repeated them. Hold the line. It became more than an order. It became a promise. The battle lasted for hours that felt like days. Ships burned, entire fleets vanished, but the Unity fleet refused to break. Then came the final moment. Scientists on board the Dawnfire found a weakness in the sphere's energy pattern. If they could overload it with enough power, it would collapse in on itself. But the only way to do it was from close range, a suicide mission. Captain Hale didn't hesitate. She ordered the crew to prepare for evacuation, but her officers refused to leave. "We started this together," her first mate said quietly. "We finish it together," she smiled sadly. It was the same bravery she had seen years ago on Titan's Reach. The Dawnfire charged straight toward the sphere while the rest of the fleet covered them. The Devourers swarmed around trying to stop them, but the Unity ships sacrificed themselves one by one, blocking the path. The ship's hull shook violently, systems failing, alarms screaming. Captain Hale placed her hand on the control panel and whispered, "Admiral Ward, this is for you." Then she activated the overload. A blinding light spread through space, brighter than 1,000 suns. The sphere cracked, then imploded, dragging the entire swarm into itself before vanishing in silence. When the light faded, there was nothing left but calm stars. The Devourers were gone. The galaxy fell silent for what felt like hours. Then came the cheers, quiet at first, then rising into a roar that filled every ship. The Unity fleet had won. The war that had lasted for decades was finally over. But the Dawnfire was gone. Captain Hale and her crew had vanished with it, their sacrifice completing the story that had begun years ago at Vega Prime. When news spread, entire planets mourned. For the second time in history, humanity had saved the galaxy by giving everything they had. This time, no one saw them as monsters or even just heroes. They were legends, guardians of life. Statues of Captain Hale joined those of Admiral Ward, two humans looking out toward the stars with calm, determined eyes. In the centuries that followed, the galaxy entered an age of peace. The Unity fleet remained as a symbol of cooperation among all races. The humans, once from a small and dangerous planet, had become the heart of the Union. Their courage and sacrifice had changed the destiny of countless worlds. Children of every species learned about the Deathworlders, how they were not born fearless, but became brave because they refused to give up. And sometimes, on clear nights when ships traveled near the site of the final battle, sensors picked up faint signals, whispers in the static like voices carried on the wind of space. Some said it was just interference. Others believed it was the echo of the Dawnfire's final transmission. A simple message repeated over and over. "We hold the line." Those words became eternal. They were engraved on the hulls of ships, spoken in ceremonies and remembered in hearts. Humanity's story, from a dangerous world to the galaxy's greatest defenders, became proof that even in the darkest corners of the universe, hope can survive and light can rise again. And so, though the Deathworlders were gone, their spirit remained forever, shining among the stars they once protected, reminding all who came after that courage was not born from strength, but from love, the love of life, of hope, and of each other.